Alright, y'all, let's talk a little bit of boxing. So, we're still on the Errol Spence, Terence Crawford situation. Okay? I heard it said today that Floyd Mayweather conceded everything to get his fight with Oscar De La Hoya. So, by comparison, it's not that much of a stretch for Terence Crawford to take 70-30 versus Errol Spence Jr. or take 60-40 or concede or whatever. Listen, I try my best to stay away from these talks about the negotiations. But the reality is that the negotiations, or excuse me, lack of negotiations, because they're not actually negotiating, they're just talking in public. If they're negotiating, we don't know about it. So you got a ton of live streams, a ton of videos being made about what a fighter should take, who should take this, who should take that. And my stance has remained the same. I only care about Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Bud Crawford getting in the ring, making the fight, or making the fight and getting in the ring, and that they are compensated accordingly. And by that I mean I want the fighters to get the lion's share of the money, or for the fighters to feel as though they were compensated for putting on the fight. Okay? If they're happy, then who cares how much money goes elsewhere? If they're happy with what they're getting. In terms of who should get what, the Floyd comparison, the Floyd-Oscar comparison just doesn't hold weight, and this is why. Oscar De La Hoya was a bona fide pay-per-view star, the biggest pay-per-view star in the sport of boxing when Floyd Mayweather came calling. Floyd had only put on this pay-per-view against Gotti. It did okay. Yeah, I don't think he had another pay-per-view. If he did, it was nothing to write home about because nobody talks about it. It's not, I know he fought a lot of good fighters. And I'll be honest, body of work wise, going into the fight, when you look at who they fought and how the fight played out, Floyd should have been favored going into that fight. With the only caveat being that he was a smaller man coming up, had never fought in the division. With all of that being said, when you talk about A-side, which everyone wants to keep talking about, everyone's an expert on A-side these days. If you want to talk about A-side, there was a gulf between Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather in terms of drawing power, in terms of being able to call the shot. That is why Floyd conceded everything. When it comes to Terence Crawford when it comes to Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, that gap is not nearly as wide. Yeah, Spence has put on 3 pay-per-views, one against Michael Garcia, one against Sean Porter, one against Danny Garcia. If you add all those up together, they may come out to one of Oscar's lower grossing pay-per-views in terms of pay-per-view buys. All 3 of them together. If you take Terence Crawford's 2 pay-per-views and add them up, they probably come pretty close to what Mayweather versus Gotti did, or about half of what Mayweather Gotti did. I don't know. But my point is, Oscar was a perennial pay-per-view star. Floyd should have conceded everything to get that fight done, and he did so wisely. Now, Terence Crawford wants to concede and take 70-30 once an offer is actually made, once they're really negotiating and not just talking. That's on him. If he wants to take 60-40, that's on him. If Errol and he agree on 50-50, that's on them. If Errol agrees to give Terence Crawford 60 and he takes the 40, that's on him. My only concern, as I've stated multiple times, is that we are going to keep hearing these guys go back and forth in the public about making the fight to the point that they're going to get further away from actually making a fight. And then what's going to happen is one of these guys is going to end up fighting the wrong person on the wrong night and end up getting beat. And even though they still can fight, even though the fight can still be big, the fight will never be as big as what it is right now. This fight has huge implications for boxing, especially for two African American boxers who people claim can't put on a great show together. So for my liking, I want to see the fight sooner than later. And I feel like I keep saying this over and over, excuse me. But I don't want to get hung up on the who deserves what, because it's not my place. And quite frankly, it's not any of y'all's boxing channels or fans. It's not our place to say what one guy deserves versus another guy in terms of the purse split, or in terms of where the fight should be held, or in terms of who should come out first, any of that. That is all stuff that they can work out behind the scenes. Sometimes you have to give something to get something. So if your purse ain't what you, it's prize fights, but at the end of the day, sometimes if you don't get the purse you want, there's other things you can ask for in negotiation. But all of that stuff needs to happen behind the scenes. I guess it's good if people do great views when they talk about it, because for some reason, there are a lot of boxing fans out there who don't realize that they have a permanent set of pom-poms attached to the end of their wrist. So they don't realize that all they're doing is spending more time concerned about how much somebody's going to get paid, or who gets to win in terms of the negotiation and saying they're the A side or the B side, than they are actually being boxing fans and supporting the sport and actually want to push the sport of boxing forward and demanding that these fights get made. The energy that fans on both sides are putting forward, demanding that their fighter win in the negotiations when they're not even negotiations being had, should be put toward demanding from all parties involved that they make this fight, or they're going to start losing money or viewership or support if they keep him hawing around and making other fights that we're not really trying to see. I've been supporting these guys ever since I discovered East Boxing. Okay? I'm going to continue to support these guys, but I'm not going to be taken for a ride in doing so. That's all I got to say on the subject. D-Lo 404 Boxing, I'm out.